Last month, as part of its Welfare to Work programme, the government announced a new deal for unemployed 18 to 24-year-olds. It's a scheme which aims to get up to 250,000 young people off benefit and into work. The new deal is a partnership between the Employment Service and a wide variety of private companies, local authorities, voluntary organisations and many others to provide young unemployed with opportunities and training for the future. Andrew Smith is the Minister in charge of the New Deal.
The philosophy behind the New Deal is all about opening up real hope and opportunity for young unemployed people and indeed other unemployed people as we extend the programme more widely, equipping people with the skills and the real work experience that they need, not just to get into a job, but to progress in employment afterwards.
Our overall response to the Welfare to Work programme is to welcome it. We think the government has been imaginative, is being bold and is creating new ways of getting people off benefits and into work, and we think that's good for deaf people and we think it holds enormous potential.
Well, it all sounds very promising, but what do young deaf and hard of hearing people think? Tom Fears is one of these people, and recently he took part in a presentation to MPs organised by the RNID, telling them about the discrimination faced by the deaf and hard of hearing when looking for work.
Well, when I joined ASDA, I was working there at the time. I didn't realise what the New Deal was all about. I thought that New Deal was something for the employers. I didn't realise what it all meant. It wasn't clearly explained to me. I think there's a need for good information for deaf people.
To find out more about the scheme, I've come to Brixton Hills Job Centre in London to speak to one of their New Deal personal advisors.
The idea behind New Deal is that you will have an initial interview with a personal advisor called a gateway interview, and then a gateway period of 4 months, during which time that advisor is there to give you all the support and help that you need. We've contracted out with other organisations to provide things as small as a CV or things as large as drug counselling and help with placing people into the very homes that they live in.
For young people who are deaf and hard of hearing, just as with other young people, to be eligible for the programme, they'll need to be in receipt of job seekers allowance. But for those who are, they don't have to wait the normal 6 months to access the programme. They'll be able to get onto New Deal straight away. And there'll be special help available both from the advice and counselling teams who are already working in job centres, but also in every aspect of the programme, so that their particular needs and their particular potential is fully recognised and acted upon.
If a deaf or hard of hearing person comes into the job centre staff have a general overall disability awareness. But if a person needed specialist help and advice, then they would refer that individual to me, who can offer them one-to-one advice, support, and looking at what the person wants to do, whether they wanted an interpreter for the job interview, or whether they wanted specialist equipment, whether they wanted advice and information about training courses, or whether they wanted to go to a job club. Again, depends what the person wants to do.
After discussions with their personal advisors, young people have a choice of 5 different options. Option 1 is a job with a day off in the week for education and training, which will eventually lead to a qualification. Option 2 is up to 6 months work experience with a voluntary sector organisation, again with that day off in the week for education and training. Option 3 is work experience with the Environmental Task Force, also with the day off in the week for education and training. And option 4 is a return to full-time education, and there is also the option for those who wish to be self-employed. Here's a recap of the New Deal options. 1. A job with an employer. 2. Work experience with a voluntary sector employer. 3. Work experience with an environmental task force. 4. A return to full-time education. And there's also an option for self-employment, and people with a disability can join the New Deal on a part-time basis. Oh, and in case you're wondering, no, you can't opt out of the New Deal. The scheme is compulsory, and if you refuse to take part, you could lose your benefit.
More than 7,000 businesses were already signed up to New Deal agreements committing them to take on New Deal employees. And of course, those partners are also informing the design and delivery of the New Deal in other ways. And I was very pleased to see that the Royal School for the Deaf in Derby is one of those who've signed up and are committed to offering opportunities through the voluntary sector option, as well as advising us in other ways. So count the deaf and hard of hearing very much in to the New Deal.
It's been hard in the past. I've had a number of problems finding a job. I don't know what it is. Maybe, well, I think some employers just can't cope with deaf people. That's wrong. Deaf people are just the same as the hearing world. The only difference is they can't hear. This is the problem.
Well, there are a range of problems that deaf people find when they're looking for work. And perhaps the biggest one is simple discrimination. The research we did last autumn showed that deaf people were more likely to be prejudiced against by employers and by opinion leaders, and people thought it was more difficult for a deaf person to have a job than somebody with a criminal record, somebody who was a drug user, somebody who was a recovered alcoholic. Almost anybody was seen to be less of a liability in the workplace by employers than deaf people. So the biggest problem is people's attitudes, and until we can get attitudes changed, people will have significant difficulties finding work.
I've been to college and I got a full qualification at MVQ Level 2 as a chef, and I've worked in the restaurant business. I thought when I got the qualification, I'd get a job really easily. I never thought it would be like this. I'm not really surprised. It seems that the qualification is just not enough.
We certainly want to do more to encourage an enlightened attitude, and indeed, frankly, it's in line with their self-interest as well, because employers who are not giving a fair chance to people who are deaf or hard of hearing are denying themselves a rich source of talent for their business. And this is the positive spirit in which we want to challenge that underrepresentation and challenge discrimination.
Until personal advisors are able to support deaf people, both in terms of communication support needs, whether it be sign language, whether it be lip speaking or whatever else, but also until they're able to show that they understand how they can help a deaf person get interviews, fill in application forms, and guide them through their first few weeks and months in a new job, then the Welfare to Work programme will be little less than a good idea that needs to be implemented properly.
Well, let me say, I personally look into any complaints about the way the New Deal operates, because we have to continually improve the service that we give everybody, including, of course, young people with disabilities. And as far as deaf and hard of hearing are concerned, I am assured that the subtitles are on teletext for all of the television advertisements. I am assured that we're operating a Minicom facility in relation to the New Deal helpline, and we are shortly to issue a signed video explaining the New Deal, its philosophy and what it offers young people. There will be monitoring of disabled people's entry and progress into the programme as well, and we'll be examining progress very carefully to make sure that there are full and fair opportunities, and where there is any evidence of that not being the case, then we'll take action to ensure that people are getting a fair deal through the New Deal.
For the New Deal, it's early days, and no one yet knows what impact it will have upon the training and job prospects of deaf and hard of hearing people. However, if you have any experience of the New Deal or a comment on its operation and the thinking behind it, then the RNID want to hear from you. So we'll give you their address at the end of the programme. So do write in and let them know if you think the New Deal is working for you.
Now, London is famous for its tourist attractions, but one of the most frightening is the London Dungeons. It's got exhibits from way back, right up to medieval times, when, if you were found to have committed even the pettiest of crimes, you could be thrown into the dungeons and even sentenced to death. And there's one very famous person here who was known for his hideous crimes. That was Jack the Ripper. In here, they have wardens who are responsible for guiding people around the dungeons, and they are dressed in costumes that reflect the horrors of the dungeons. I'm here to meet one girl, Sarah Beauvoisin. She's dressed as a knife-wielding zombie, so I expect she'll be very easy to find. Oh, blimey. Oh, are you Sarah? And you work here as a guide?
Yes.
Will you show me around?
This way.
Now, behind there is a post-mortem on one of Jack the Ripper's victims. You've got a very unusual job here. How did you get it?
From the job centre. A friend pointed it out. They told me there was a job available at the London Dungeon, and that's how the opportunity came up.
So, do you like your work here?
I love it. Scaring people. The worst are the Japanese group. One was in last week. The weak ones scare real easy.
Now, when you say you scare them, how do you do that?
Well, I stand perfectly still, and as the people gather round to look at me, I pound and they all jump out of their skin. Brilliant.
Yeah, I always love to do that too.
Welcome to Whitechapel and Spitalfield. This is Jack the Ripper murders in this very dangerous, gruesome place. Now, I am pointing this first victim here. She is called Mary Ann Nichols. She was murdered in Foxgrove. Jack the Ripper, what he did to the first victim, grabbed her and cut from the left into the right. And then after that, he used this knife and plunged it down towards her stomach and whipped it open. See, right here.
Now, you're deaf and you work here at the dungeons. Do you find you have any communication problems?
No, not really. Because as well as using sign language, I'm using body language gesture, visual expressions.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So you've now been here for 2 weeks, right? What are your plans for the future?
I'm hoping to set up a special PR event for disabled people and deaf people, all integrated, and have an interpreter show, and possibly also have workshops on makeup and various things. And hopefully the London Dungeon boat party will have deaf people, myself and other wardens using sign language for deaf people. Well, now I have to go. Sorry.
No. No, no, don't leave. Maybe there are ghosts here. No, no.
Hello! Are these all the guilty, Clark?
Well, I'll be it, Sarah.
You! That man over there. Signing is forbidden in this courtroom. You are guilty. And now I have the power invested in me. I send you all to death.
Oh. Have you been sentenced to death by the judge?
No, I work here.
Ah. Oh, you work here?
Yes, get into the boat. Yes.
Now, you're a warden here, and I bet you get lots of requests from people wanting a job like yours. So, can I ask you, what does a job entail?
Yes, indeed. We have many different kinds of people from all over the social spectrum, indeed. The job, basically, is to tend the dungeons, look after the tourists, and occasionally frighten them. Yes. Oh, yes.
Sarah's been teaching deaf awareness and sign language. Have you found it useful?
Using the sign language that Sarah has taught us around the dungeon enables us to sign the fire exits to people in need of that. And of course, yes, it's very helpful in every day because we have all kinds of people coming here. It's really very useful. Well, it's been very nice talking to you, but unfortunately, Ramon, you're guilty. Yes, and now you're going to die. Yes, enjoy your death. See you in hell. Yes, you vermin.
I've been in the boat for so long, trying to escape. How do I get out?
What are you doing here?
I've been on the boat for ages, and I'm trying to find a way out.
I will show you the way out. Ah!
When Kyle was born, there was a problem straight away because the doctor was working on Kyle almost immediately he was born. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with Kyle. It was just when another doctor walked past, who was the head of the unit, mentioned Treacher-Collins syndrome, and that was the first we heard of it. We heard about the Treacher-Collins Family Support Group, and we went to the National Deaf Children's Society head office in London for a meeting, and it was there that we met Mr. Proops.
Treacher-Collins is a very interesting condition. It probably affects about 5,000 people in the United Kingdom, and it's quite characteristic. The facial appearance is very characteristic. It's thought to be a failure of development of the what we call the branchial arch system, which includes the jaw, the facial skeleton, and, from my point of view, the ears, and especially the little bones in the ears.
They tried giving Kyle the headband hearing aid when he was in the hospital, and he would not wear it. He kept pulling it off, throwing it out of his cot, throwing it on the floor, doing anything he could, but he wouldn't wear it.
Kyle has moderately severe Treacher-Collins syndrome, and so he had very abnormal ears. They looked abnormal on the outside, and they were very abnormal in their function. Now, the inner ear worked fine. He had normal inner ear function, but of course the sound couldn't get through the ear canal, through those abnormal little bones. And so Kyle's major problem when we first met him was a communication one. And so the first thing we did is say to Kyle and his family, well, we can help you enormously with your hearing, and once we get your hearing improved, then your communication skills will improve, your speech and language will improve. And so we fitted him with this bone-anchored hearing aid in the first instance.
And then the next thing we came to was the ears, the prosthetic ears.
I really want to plant ears because people were picking on me, and there was one certain boy at school called Ripley. He was really big and he was just annoying. And he was like 12. He went top class and then he kept bullying me, calling me names and stuff.
Most often we wait until the child is going to secondary school or about to go to secondary school. The reason for that is that self-awareness becomes a much bigger issue, and then you're going to go to a new environment and meet a whole group of new friends. And so our policy here is to say to the children, we'll give you new ears when you go to your new school.
Kyle was 8 and a half. So Mr. Proop said, well, the best thing to do is to leave the operation until you're about 11 or 12, Kyle. And then Kyle started bartering with Mr. Proops.
I can remember what he said, you got to wait until you're like 13 halfway, please. So I just said no. So he went, okay, 12 halfway, please. So I said no. And then he went down to 11 half 12, so I said no. And then he finally got down to 10 and he said, that's your last offer what I'm going to do. So I said, okay.
He had a clear view of what he wanted, and we knew that was coming from Kyle and not being pushed from his parents. So we were happy to accede to his wish, and he had his ears on, slightly younger than most.
They'd already discussed using Leander as a model for Kyle's ears, because she's 1 year older than Kyle. She's the perfect model. And we was thinking now we could show Kyle what he was going to look like when he's had the operation. When we came home, we were just sat watching the TV, and Crime Stoppers came on. And did you know this criminal? And we said to each other, yes, we'll phone the police and ask the police to help us, which we did. Along we went with a video of Leander and Kyle. He plugged it into his computer and did whatever he does on his computer, and out came a photograph of Kyle with Leander's ears. And it was unbelievable.
Sorry.
That comes over there like that. It's Mr. Thompson, he works upstairs in the control room.
Oh.
Kyle was very nervous coming up to the operation because it was going to change his life forever. Because not only was he going to have plastic ears fitted, they were going to remove his little lobes that were on the side of his head.
The operation for fitting either the bone-anchored hearing aid or the artificial ear requires a quite simple procedure. The first stage, we put the screw, or fixture as we call it, into the bone, and at the second procedure, 3 to 4 months later, we fit what we call the abutment. That is the bit that comes through the skin, on which we can either hang the hearing aid or the artificial ear.
And the big day came in November last year, when Kyle had to go down to have his prosthetic ears fitted. And we saw a young lady in the maxillofacial department, and she actually fitted them. And there was a big mirror behind a curtain in the room. And Lindsay said, "I shall leave you alone to open the curtain and show Kyle," because Kyle had not seen himself at this time.
She put his ears on and looked in this mirror, and I was, well, amazed. Because, well, I didn't really know who it was at first, because I thought it was somebody else. Or was like tricking me. It was like for a picture of me or something. But it was me, so I was very happy and excited. When I had operation, it made me feel, well, full human, because before it made me feel, well, not full, because I didn't have everything that humans have.
What's so interesting about our patients and our children is they feel the hearing aid or the artificial ear is part of them. It's one of their body parts. It's what makes them a complete person. And they like to feel it in that way, and so do we.
Most of the things that I really changed is that people don't stare at me anymore because I've got ears now. And they don't pick on me, and now I've got a lot of friends. Because before, people didn't want to be friends with me because way I look.
They gave him 2 pair of ears, one for school and one for Sunday best, we like to call it. And Kyle has always said that when he got his ears, he would go into a jeweller's and ask them if they pierced ears. And the reply would be yes. So Kyle would take one of his ears off and say, "Here, get this pierced." It changes people's lives forever, because Kyle's life has now changed. Not only Kyle's, but our life as well.
People like me who's watching, who's got critical colour syndrome, this is what you're going to look like if you go to Birmingham and see Mr. Clowns. Without operation, without pain, without agony, without travelling. It's really worth it because, well, after it all, you get a lot because you get to look normal and you get to look like everybody else.